Welcome to this edition of Your Health, Your Wealth. I'm your host, Dr. Patton, and I have a great show for you today. My guest today is Dr. Beata Lerman. She's the founder and CEO of Sinless Treats chocolate, and I'm so excited for everybody to hear about this chocolate. I tell you, I've been partaking in the chocolate already before we got started, and it is absolutely delicious. So we're going to find out all about her chocolate, how it's cultivated, how it's made, and why it's actually sinless, which you put sinless and chocolate together, it sounds like it doesn't fit, but in this case, it does. Beata's a very dynamic person, ready to get into your story as a scientist, immunologist, geneticist, cancer survivor, and chocolatier. So we're going to focus today on our bodies and the effects on overall health. And I really just want to hear about your story as an entrepreneur and that transition from scientist to chocolatier. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Well, entrepreneur is a surprise.
Okay.
So, I always say I was born to be a scientist and trained to be a scientist. I started very early back in Russia at 12 years old. They discovered that I have aptitude to biology, chemistry, and ecology. And that country is very keen on developing kids very young when they show some kind of talent. Mm-hmm. So as a part of my studies, we were required to do biomedical research with the university labs. And so my very first project was actually understanding the mutations that are caused by heavy metals such as tungsten and molybdenum in the cells of living things at the dump site of a factory that was producing the light bulbs, because the tungsten is before LEDs, right? Like 40 years ago, a while ago, the lamps had these wires, and then it was a coil of molybdenum that would get heat up. Okay. And so all of the waste of the heavy metals from the production was being dumped actually in the natural area, and we would go and collect the animals from that area and then do the sections of their tissue and stain it to see a mutation, how the chromosomes were not separating properly in the cell cycle division. I came to the United States in 1999 as a refugee from the First Chechen War. Mm-hmm. That was one of 3 wars I've seen in my lifetime. And I started at the medical center at the year 2000. So I came to the medical center as a 17-year-old with a resume and went door to door to see who will hire me as a lab assistant or some kind of scientific role. I have a brother to raise. I couldn't work on weekends, so I was actually picked up in Department of Microbiology and Molecular Genetics of UT McGovern Medical. It is McGovern Medical School now, but it was just UT Health Science Center back then. Mm-hmm. So I studied G proteins, and I always joke, I studied molecular biology back when it was a field and not a tool.
Okay. Okay, I got you.
And from there, I moved to Baylor College of Medicine to do research on autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis, which is a very debilitating. And I also did some research on celiac disease at the same lab.
So you did MG research. I specialize in myasthenia gravis.
Oh, I had no idea. Yeah, maybe we should have started with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I remember as a very young scientist, I was maybe a 21-year-old. We would get serum from the patients because one of the methods of treatment was botulinum injection. Before Botox became popular for the face, it was actually a treatment for a real debilitating disease, as you know. And we would essentially put that serum into mice and inject them with the toxin. And whichever mice died, they could still get treated. And whichever survived had antibodies to botulinum neurotoxin, they had to be switched to a different type.
Interesting, very interesting. Because that is how because of the early studies with in MG and creating that phenotype as far as the weakness. Wow. So you did so immunologist, geneticist, work your way up through all the way to MD Anderson, which is like the center there at the medical center.
My original idea, I wanted to do gene therapy. At the worst time to do gene therapy was when that clinical trial of adenoviral vector killed 2 patients and there was moratorium. So I went out of the country to a different country where gene therapy was front and center. And I did my PhD in Tel Aviv University.
Okay.
This was pre-CRISPR. I started in 2005 and finished in 2009. And we isolated a gene from a bacteriophage, similar as CRISPR.
Okay.
But we were the first to show the proof of concept that a phage-derived enzyme could cause a site-specific exchange of defective gene to a correct gene. Wow. And after that, everybody started to screen all other, pairs. Mm-hmm. And that's how they found CRISPR-Cas9.
Yeah, and you hear CRISPR, it's like a catchphrase nowadays. Everyone is so excited about CRISPR technology and in the hopes of the treatments and different things that it's going to bring.
Yeah, well, that's the hope. So Cas9 is the attachment-like site on the victim of the bacteriophage in nature, but also there is Cas9-like site on the human genome, and so that's how the recombination happened there. And after that, when I came back, I was actually recruited by MD Anderson, by Department of Lymphoma and Myeloma, the lab of Dr. Larry Kwok. He created a DNA vaccine for lymphoma by the time that I joined his lab. And they had a project of creating this antibody-like molecule that would be called a peptibody. It would have a much more favorable immune profile, so the body does not develop the antibodies against the treatment. And they needed an antibody engineer or genetic engineer who could make it happen, and they followed my work and joined his lab. For various reasons, decided to do another PhD. And
just do another PhD.
Yeah, why not? There was a method to my madness, but a conversation for a different time. And came out with a Nature Medicine first author publication, 2 patents for actually 2 different antibody-like molecules that would attack the suppressive tumor microenvironment. So the way I like to explain it is if imagine tumor as an invader that build a tower, and different immune system cells are like differently armed armed forces. So T cells are like best equipped, but they're climbing those walls. By the time they get to the top, they're so exhausted they just fall over. Called T cell exhaustion. And like the other cells, other more myeloid cells, granulocytes, monocytes, they're like ninjas. They're more stealthy. They're light, but once they go over the hedge, they get beaten up and turn into double agents. That's how you get tumor-associated macrophages and So what my therapy does, it brings down the wall. It destroys the wall. So together with adaptive T-cell transfer, it actually completely gets rid of tumors.
You just made immunology into a video game. That was probably... you should teach that to medical students.
That's how I teach 5-year-olds about that.
Really?
Yes.
I can tell. I mean, I totally get it. I was like, man, I've never heard immunology broken down that way. So, okay, that's awesome. So you're at MD Anderson, and we were talking earlier about your personal journey from actually being a cancer researcher to now a cancer survivor, and you have some very unique thoughts about genetics and cancer and so forth. So, yeah, tell me a little bit more about that.
So I was at MD Anderson from 2010 to 2015. So just living my life. And then at mid-2018, I developed this mysterious mysterious disease, a fever that couldn't be broken for 3 months, lymph nodes acting really strange. And I had this very raised tumors all over. And when it got tested, I was diagnosed with cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. I graduated out of Department of Lymphoma Myeloma. I get a lymphoma as a cancer diagnosis. I'm like, well, I know my enemy to my face. And so I had a wonderful care team. A lot of them were actually my defense committee. And I was able to get an immunotherapy for that. So a brutal and very effective treatment. And I walked away cancer-free. However, being a cancer scientist, I also knew that the best way to actually not just put it in remission and wait until it comes back 5 years later is not feed the cancer.
Okay.
And how does cancer get fed? It's sugar. And I think more and more people are getting onto this information now and understanding that cancer cells, they're so genetically misdifferentiated that they cannot fall back onto a more older evolutionary pathways, like, switching between ketones and glucose for energy. They can only use glucose and they can only use fermentation. So, I am a classically trained immuno-oncologist. So for ages in my graduate school, I was told that cancer is a genetic disease, And, you hear it long enough, you're going to start believing it. But the evidence, the real facts on the ground was talking against it. First of all, some people just develop cancer and there is no genetic mutation. Happens in lymphoma, happens in a lot of childhood cancers as well. It's like, what is the trigger? Then, the example that I really love is when I was working with cystic fibrosis, there is, when I was doing gene therapy, there is a very specific mutation. It's a single nucleotide change of a amino acid. And 100% of people born with that mutation would have cystic fibrosis. They would have, excess liquid, accumulating in all of the cavities, in their stomach, in their lungs, which is why they usually die very young. They're prone to pneumonias. If they don't have a drain, they actually just drown in the in that mucus and that liquid that's accumulating. So there is no people that are born with that disease that are walking around to like bright age of 80 years old. It just doesn't happen. With cancer, you can, like in breast cancer, you can have BRCA mutation, BRCA1, BRCA2, HER, and only 28% or about 28% of people having a mutation develop a disease. What happens with other 72? So there were bright scientists and doctors who suggested a different hypothesis. And once again, it's a hypothesis. We're still testing it. But I think it's very sound that cancer is a metabolic disease. So yes, there may be a genetic component, but it's not the only cause, because people with mutations sometimes live their entire life, never develop cancer. Well, why not? That gene was never turned on. So that's epigenetics.
Yeah.
And how is epigenetics affected? It's affected by metabolism. It's affected by stress levels, proper methylation, improper acetylation, all kinds of things that we do to ourselves.
And environment.
And environment,
yeah.
Yes. Toxins, cosmetics, whatnot.
Yeah. I don't think we talk enough about that metabolic effect. We're seeing it with like Alzheimer's and the connection between Alzheimer's and blood sugar, glucose levels and all of that. And, when you think about cancer and, the big issue with cancer cells is that they're reproducing at a rate faster than all others. Well, how can they do that unless they have like massive amounts of energy?
Exactly.
And so to your point, we're kind of feeding that. So how did you use that knowledge as far as your treatment and how you got this thing into remission? Yeah.
Well, so immunotherapy essentially killed everything that looked like cancer. Mm-hmm. It's 72 hours of, I actually took it quite nicely. I was joking about it. I'm a scuba diver, and I was like, just put me in a pool, keep throwing the tanks at me, and let me just survive a 106-degree fever in there. Wow. Of course, nobody was going to do that. But I thought it would be fun. I was like, what a fun story. Like, I was on immunotherapy and I was in the pool for 72 hours scuba diving.
That would be an interesting story.
That's not my story, unfortunately. But, one thing that I did decide is my daughter was a year and 3 months old at the time of my treatment. And I said that I will do everything for this never to come back. And that for me meant if sugar feeds cancer, I'm going to get rid of sugar. And I'm going to go and research everything about proper ketogenic diet that was, discovered in 1920s as a treatment for seizures. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to understand everything there is to it. And I'm going to live under 20 grams of net carbs from all sources a day. And people always tell me, but it's so limiting. I was like, I'm the most unlimited person in my diet there is. You can literally make anything keto.
Wow.
Including chocolate.
Yeah. And when I was training in neurology, particularly at the Children's Hospital, we used to put kids on a keto diet. And, at that time, I didn't know much about it. And it seemed like such a, like, oh my goodness, these kids have to go on this ketogenic diet. But now I actually do the ketogenic diet from time to time. So we've gone full circle now to where people are believing in it. But I think, and my advice to even patients is that, diets, you have different diets that are fats and so forth. But when you talk about or think about the natural state of our body and how our body uses the different fuels, sugar, fats, proteins, ketones, and especially the brain are a very important part of that cycle.
Yeah, and I think it's very protective, especially for the brain, but a lot of other systems, cardiovascular, liver, kidneys. So I've been on ketogenic lifestyle for over 7 years now, and it wasn't really difficult to switch because, we live in a world where, first of all, there is a lot of great research. And I know most people don't go finding their health information on PubMed.com or clinicaltrials.gov. Mm-hmm. I do. And I actually, for whoever wants to have me as a resource, help digest those things. But there is plenty of really well-researched sugar alternatives, natural sugar alternatives that can do exactly what sugar can without any kind of side effects or adverse effects to health. And, it's very funny because I always say nature doesn't make mistakes, people do. So it's not the food, it's what was done to the food. So to me, if we start with the single ingredients foods and we do as little as possible to it, that's the most optimal food for humans, and that's what would actually by itself kind of balance out what sugar does in the body.
So speaking of that, let's talk about your company, Sinless Treats, and the whole notion behind it. When I think about chocolate, I love chocolate. Okay, I love dark chocolate. But I always think of it as, it's always a guilty thing. It's like, I had a stressful day, so I'm going to treat myself to some chocolate or, a celebration chocolate. So, we don't, we shouldn't think of it as an everyday thing, at least before, because, if you go to CVS or Walgreens or wherever and just get a chocolate bar, if you do that every day, it's not the healthiest thing. But it is, so fulfilling, and I loved chocolate. So when I heard the story of how you took all this knowledge that you were just talking about the effect on your body and put it into a chocolate, I'm like, all right, yeah, I gotta hear more about this. So tell me about Sinless Treats and how this come about. How do you get your product? How do you make your treats?
So before I answer that, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
If you had one wish about chocolate, what would it be?
That I wouldn't gain so much weight after I eat a bunch of it. That'd probably be the one wish.
Trust me, I've heard it probably several hundreds, if not thousands of times. And it's actually very similar. The answers are very similar every time I ask this question. So the question was when I gave up the sugar and I learned to make everything with natural unprocessed sugar alternatives. One thing that I was missing, and I was still in corporate medicine, I was working for a company called MedImmune as a medical science liaison. That was right after a few months, maybe close to a year after my cancer treatment. I was like, I can make eclairs, I can make cakes, I can make ice cream with no sugar, but I love chocolate. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, surely somebody has already invented chocolate that is sugar-free and tasting decent. Boy, was I wrong. I bought everything under the sun. I went to Amazon and bought these keto truffles that were $5 a piece. Just unremarkable, just like chocolatey little balls. And I realized that it's very easy to mess up a sugar-free product. Mm-hmm. Because sugar-free, if you don't know chemistry and you don't know how molecules work and how molecules work in our bodies, it's very easy to make a good idea a horrible tasting product. And then there were things like Unreal, which is 4 grams of sugar per little 10-gram little candy bar. And I'm like, there's nothing unreal about that. This is very real. This would feed cancer in the very, very real way. So as much as I love the taste, the ingredients on that list was not promoting health. And so I thought, well, how can... my first question was very scientific. How can I take 100% chocolate and sweeten it with something that I can eat? And I tried. I actually have a video evidence of that. I took 100% chocolate and some organic erythritol that was made from organic apples and pears. Mm-hmm. And I literally tried to mix it in. Spoiler alert, that didn't work.
Okay.
It was very grainy, and then it didn't, of course, diffuse in the chocolate because chocolate is cacao butter and cacao solids. And try to mix sugar into oil. What do you think the result would be? It doesn't mix.
It doesn't sound too appealing.
Yeah, no, it's it doesn't work. It falls out. And I was like, well, but how is chocolate made? And so I took my family to rural Costa Rica, to the villages that are way off the beaten path. And we learned from locals, descendants from Aztecs, how they make chocolates. And they showed me this granite little table and a little pestle and how they would get this locally grown plants like stevia leaves and chicory and roasted cacao beans without the husk, because we would take the husk by hand. And we would just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for like 45 minutes, refining that raw chocolate. Wow. And I go like, oh, so you
light
actually
bulb went off.
grind the sweeteners inside the solid, inside the cacao solids. Mm-hmm. So I came back to Houston. I got a machine that runs the granite stones on a granite plate. So very similar to the Asian mind methods, only instead of like doing it by hand and making like 1 bar of chocolate every hour, we could do like 4 kilos of chocolate. And I was like, this works. And so I created this combination of sweeteners that would consist of organic whole plant stevia, green, not white, so the stalks and the leaves. What we pride ourselves on is throughout our entire supply chain, we deal directly with farmers. So we get cacao beans from the original DNA cacao farmers that grow in regenerative way in Ecuador. So basically they grow it. We visit the farm every year. And, once they dry it off, they put it in the bags and they send it to Houston. We roast and winnow and create the chocolate here. Wow. Fully integrated matter. So we don't buy like Walrona or, Calibo, whatever. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 professions in chocolate. There's chocolate makers and there's chocolatiers. Chocolate makers are people who take the beans of specific flavor profile and they do the grinding with the sweeteners and they develop that flavor profile. The chocolatiers don't make the chocolate. They take the pre-made chocolate, melt it, and craft those beautiful pieces out of it. And those 2 very rarely intersect. So we do both. We make the chocolate from the beans and raw ingredients, and then we craft the chocolate into whatever then we eat. So, but the story of the company, I learned how to sweeten the chocolate with things that would be metabolically friendly and would not raise the blood sugar level. And I was making these candies, but because mold has more than 5 spaces, I was making more than I can eat. And I started taking this chocolate as gifts to friends. Parties, birthdays, just potlucks. And amazing things happened when people started calling me and say, there's something about your chocolate. It's very special. And I said, what do you mean? They're like, when I eat it, and I'm diabetic, by the way, and I had no idea, because it's not like somebody goes like, hi, I am John and I'm a diabetic, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody does that. Usually you find out in most like weirdest way. And they're like, yeah, I'm diabetic. And usually like when I eat chocolate, I get this like brain fog and vertigo and tingling sensation. And it makes sense, right? The sugar caramelizes little capillaries and they get hypoxia and they get tingling sensation and vertigo and their vision goes down. And like, this is not happening with your chocolate. Like, I feel great. And I'm like, I'm in keto. I'm in ketosis. Let's see how many of these I need to eat to knock me out of ketosis. And so the first night I tried to eat 6, so the whole box of this. And woke up next morning, checked with my keto mojo, was still in ketosis, 2.5. Great. I'm like, okay. Next day, I'm like, I'm going to eat 10 of this. Like, okay, definitely going to knock me out. Woke up next morning, I'm still in ketosis. I'm like, all right, this is interesting. I'm going to eat 15 the next day. And I woke up, I was still in ketosis, and I'm like, what is going on? So we send it to the lab for the analysis. We send the solid chocolates, and we send the bonbons that we had. And when the lab came back, the nutrition facts and what they found, the dark chocolate had 0 net carbs. A lot of the dark chocolate pieces, like this one over there, that red one, had 0 net carbs. And because, in keto, you're under 20, but realistically, I was living under 13. Okay. And even like eating 15, 5 of which had 0 net carbs, would still not put me over threshold of 20. And I'm like, we have an amazing product here that can actually do something good. This was before I had the continuous glucose monitor. And then I got a CGM. And
that was a very interesting story. Now, this is the doshi, right? Is that right?
Yeah. So for normal people, it's a sea salt caramel. Okay. It's my pride because I invented this caramel. This caramel is absolutely sugar-free.
Okay.
And
I'm
it's
trying a
without
piece of
chocolate.
this chocolate right here on the podcast. No, that's good.
So if you didn't know there
That's
was
good.
no sugar, would you be able to tell?
No, it's not overly sweet. You taste the caramel, but you also really taste the chocolate. I mean, it's really good.
Well, the flavor should open up like a bouquet. This
Absolutely.
was kind of the mind, because sometimes you eat those pieces and they're so sweet that
Yeah.
you don't discern whatever taste is inside, whatever the artist intended to make it. You just taste the sweetness. That's
Yeah.
it. It's just pure sugar. That's what I did not want to do, because the cacao beans are so special. These are original DNA. They're very rich in microelements, micronutrients, polyphenols,
Yeah.
all the building blocks of medicine. Chocolate as a medicinal food in the ancient times, it was food of gods for a reason, because if people get lost in the rainforest and they have to they found cacao trees, they can actually sustain themselves in pretty excellent health without any nutritional defects and deficiencies, because cacao fruit has proper actually keto combination now if I think about it. So cacao beans have proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. In the original DNA cacao, about 68% of it is cacao butter. The natural cacao butter, it's fats like an avocado. You wouldn't taste it unless you try to squeeze the butter out. But, you have fiber and you have protein, and the skin around the seed is sweet. So if you eat that whole, you get your carbs, your proteins, and your fats, and magnesium, and selenium, and zinc, and all of these other
You
things.
get it all in one. Well, and without raising your sugar, because you said you you actually ate the chocolate with your continuous glucose monitor on. Is that right?
But not just me. So we started giving it to people with continuous glucose monitors, both diabetics and non-diabetics, and some of it would do it at our chocolate factory right here in Houston, and some people would do it at their home, but all of them would send us the data from the monitor. And so in 384 people, their blood sugar stayed the same or slightly went down after eating at least 6 pieces of the chocolate.
Wow.
And one story that comes to mind, we had my business partner has a friend who is incredibly diabetic, very overweight, very deep into the type 2 diabetes. And my partner told him about the chocolate, and he said, "Oh, this is BS. I'm going to go and I have a CGM and I'm going to put you to the test." So he fasted. His blood sugar started at 136. He came in, he said he had 8 of the pieces. And we're there, we're sitting, we're talking for about an hour and a half. And in that hour and a half, his blood sugar went from 136 to 126. And by the time my friend drove him home, because he has a vision problem, is a part of diabetes, he was at 119.
Wow.
And he cried. And we get that feedback actually quite often. And so now we want to run a second part of that clinical trial. And I say because we don't have an IRB or, an ethics board. We decided not to find out whether it's ethical to feed people chocolate.
Yeah.
Even if it's medicinal.
Yeah.
But we want people to eat something that does spike them with the CGM and show a definitive spike, and then eat the same food followed by our chocolate. And I can't tell you what's going to happen because we haven't started it. We're going to start recruiting in a couple of months. But
we're gonna look for that trial. I mean, that's probably one you won't have a problem getting recruitments for people to come over to be in that one.
Well, we didn't for the first one either, but I think we're gonna announce it on our podcast, which is Heal Me with Chocolate.
Okay,
we're gonna get that going, and so I think we're getting set up for that trial in about 2 months. So we're gonna make an announcement.
Well, that is awesome. Well, Beata, thank you so much for being here. This show is all about, health and wealth and just learning about your company and the ability to actually eat chocolate that actually is not, you don't have to feel bad about it. It's not raising your blood sugar, not doing a bad thing. This has been an awesome experience.
Can I tell you one more magical thing about this chocolate?
Absolutely.
So, did it taste like chocolate to you?
It was, not like typical chocolate, not
overwhelmingly sweet, but you would say it's chocolate.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What if I told you that there were broccoli in that chocolate?
It definitely didn't taste like broccoli, that's for sure.
But there were. So we put broccoli microgreens because there is a great molecule called sulforaphane. It's a polyphenol that is very anti-inflammatory and also anti-cancer. Was tried in over 115 clinical trials, which is, I'm sure clinicaltrials.gov is not a site that you're a stranger to, so you can fact check me on that.
Yeah.
And so we put broccoli microgreens because microgreens are 120 times more nutrient dense than adult version of the plants. And since people don't really get enough vegetables in their diet, that kind of helps them to address some of that inflammation that systemically happen. Man. And so you were thinking you were eating a chocolate, but you were really eating a salad.
That's what I was just about to say. I can get my green vegetables too and the chocolate. Wow. I thank you so much. This has been awesome. I've learned a lot. And tell people how to, how do they get in touch with you? How can they get your product?
So
I'm telling you, it is delicious. It does taste. It tastes like chocolate, but again, a very delicate, a very, not like a chocolate bar, but a very, I could tell it's something different about that.
So they can go to sinlesstreetschocolate.com and they can find more of our story, my story personally, my journey with cancer, and all of the nutritional information. We're very transparent about it. We don't use any chemicals, artificial ingredients, or sugar. We make our own coloring. So everything that touches in and around this chocolate is made at our chocolate factory. So we freeze dry vegetables and fruits and berries and leafy greens to make the coloring. So we never use any petroleum derived, horrible colorings. And so sinlesstreetschocolate.com. And then, of course, if they're interested to participate in our clinical trial part 2, they can go to Heal Me with Chocolate podcast and follow more news about food health and how food affects health. So I appreciate this opportunity to talk about it, and I hope to have you on my podcast very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you got more chocolate, I'll be there. No.
Yeah, I'll bring. I'll bribe you with a lot more.
There you go. And I can eat it because it doesn't raise my blood sugar. So, well, thank you all for joining us for this edition of Your Health, Your Wealth. Tune in for future episodes. If you like this episode, please download it, tell your friends about it, and we'll see you next time on Your Health, Your Wealth.